Good evening, Bahamas. Coming up tonight.
The opposition is blasting the Minnis administration's decision to house the General Post Office at Town Center Mall.
The Minister of Foreign Affairs responds to recent unrest in Haiti.
Our news is brought to you by Alive.
Welcome to Our News, and thanks for joining us. I'm Kyle Joaquin. Less than 24 hours before Cabinet makes a decision on the controversial Lighthouse Point project, the coalition fighting to save Lighthouse Point is calling on government to give them 60 more days before coming to a conclusion on whether to approve a proposal put forward by Disney Cruise Line. Representatives of the Bahamas National Trust and the Warner Luther Foundation say they feel that's the only way to make it a fair fight.
This is a monumental decision and not something that should be rushed.
Fallon Cartwright is the New Providence Parks manager for the Bahamas National Trust. She said that organization, as well as the Warner Luther Foundation, were glad to hear the cabinet delayed its decision on Lighthouse Point. In fact, they're calling for even more time, 2 months to be exact.
So we're encouraged, and hopefully that the government will make an additional postponement to give us the opportunity to really push our plan out there and make people aware of what we're trying to do, because we have a plan that is better than what Disney is proposing.
Disney Cruise Line is proposing to pump $400 million into a cruise port for Lighthouse Point, which the company says will create jobs for the people of South Eleuthera. However, the Warner Luther Foundation, now backed by several other environmental groups in the Holowesco family, has presented its own proposal, which it says will create 190 permanent jobs and other opportunities for Bahamians at the site. At a recent town hall meeting in South Eleuthera, support was strong for Disney Cruise Line, with some asking where Warner Luther's plan came from, now that Disney Cruise Line has expressed interest. So we asked them.
We've been working towards this partnership. We've been working towards this type of economical development for the South Eleuthera area.
So this is nothing new?
This is nothing new. We've been building up to this, and this is the crescendo.
Our news team understands Cabinet will make a decision on the matter tomorrow. The pair also took issue with the town hall meeting where detractors to Disney's proposal were booed.
There was a program for about an hour and a half where Disney's plan was promoted, and when there was time for people to make comments,
they were booed.
And so consultation from a town hall meeting with the Prime Minister of this country should be decent, should be a space in which everyone's voice can be heard, because certainly everyone's voice was not heard at that meeting.
Hear more from the two as they appear as guests on The Record with Jerome Sawyer immediately following our news. Well, as government prepares to relocate the General Post Office to Town Center Mall, Anglican MP Glenys Hannah-Martin hit back at the Prime Minister, who asserted that the former government was also contemplating that location. Hannah-Martin noted that the Christie administration never actually went ahead of those plans and accused Minnis of seeking to distract Bahamians as his government spends millions to revive an empty mall that one of his cabinet ministers has shares in. Jillian Gray reports.
The opposition is slamming the Minnis administration's decision to house the General Post Office here at Town Center Mall, with Anglican MP Glenys Hannah-Martin stating that Prime Minister Dr. Hubert Minnis must address the conflict of interest that comes along with renting this property.
The issue at heart is a simple one. It's not what anyone else did. I think what is causing anxiety to the Bahamian people is the concern of a conflict of interest. There was no assertion that the prior administration had a conflict of interest with that building. We looked at it, we didn't use it. We determined not to use it. The issue that is causing concern today with the Bahamian people is the perception of a conflict of interest. That has nothing to do with another administration. What the Prime Minister should do is address that singular issue and not engage in the distractions, because Bahamians are intelligent.
Minister of Financial Services and Immigration Brent Simonet is a shareholder in Town Center Mall. Transport Minister Renward Wells, who has responsibility for the post office, said the law allows for the government to lease from a sitting cabinet minister. Prime Minister Dr. Hubert Minnis also defended the move, noting that Simonet was not at the cabinet table during the decision-making process. and will declare his interest during debate in Parliament on government's decision to enter a 5-year lease. Hannah Martin said the last Christie administration decided against Town Centre Mall as a temporary site for the General Post Office because renovations would be too expensive. She added that this administration is simply boosting a virtually empty centre with few remaining tenants.
The injection by the Bahamas government is going to be a huge boost to that mall. And that's something that has to be considered. I know they're saying it's only so and so much, but the value they're adding to that building by setting the post office there is really, it's a measurement that's not being calculated. It's not as straightforward as only $12 per square foot. There's a lot more involved in the actual value that's being invested in that building. I don't know what they've calculated the cost of retrofitting, but if they're using the plans they said that we left in place, it was that costing that caused us to determine we would not go in that direction.
Post office workers have cited serious health and safety concerns at the East Hill Street location. Earlier this year, the building was condemned and marked for implosion. The previous government had identified the former city market complex as a new home for the General Post Office, stating that they had done their due diligence before moving ahead with that project. Hannah Martin questioned why the Minnis administration axed those plans last year.
There was extensive review and analysis that led us to where we were. To just dismiss that out of hand for political purposes and to bring us where we are now in a controversial position, it's very unfortunate.
The Anglican MP said it is offensive that the Minnis administration is not being straightforward with this move.
They're being disingenuous. They should be upfront with the Bahamian people, knowing that there is this issue, put it on the table, and then let the chips fall where they may. But they're seeking to create political distractions. They did this with Oban. They said that the prior administration, this, that, and next thing, but we never entered into any arrangements with Oban. It was irrelevant.
The General Post Office is expected to be relocated by December. Reporting for our news, I'm Jillian Gray.
All right, thanks, Jillian. Well, a Supreme Court judge's controversial ruling that ordered immigration officials to grant residency to a man at the center of a battle involving constitutional rights without first determining his identity was yesterday quashed on appeal. Tonight, his attorney says they're taking their fight to the Privy Council.
Of course, we are very disappointed that the Court of Appeal set aside the Supreme Court judgment of Justice Hilton.
Acting Justice of Appeal Sir Michael Barnett, in a ruling delivered on Wednesday, said that Justice Gregory Hilton ought not to have considered an application for constitutional relief before determining whether Ronnie Jean Charles and the Jean Charles deported by immigration officials in November 2017 was the same person. Hilton had determined that Jean Charles's constitutional rights were breached due to the absence of due process in his deportation after dismissing a habeas corpus application for authorities to justify his detention at the Carmichael Road Detention Center. And now that the Court of Appeal has overturned that decision, Queen's Counsel Fred Smith and his team are taking it to the Privy Council.
It is regrettable that the Court of Appeal did not deal with the very important constitutional aspects of the case. Those, we feel, were the very substantial matters, whether immigration does or doesn't have the right to just pick people up at random, whether or not immigration has the right to detain people arbitrarily without taking them before a court.
In the Court of Appeal's view, Hilton wrongly decided to treat Jean Charles as an alias and said the judge was not entitled to hear the constitutional application after the end of the habeas corpus application. He said, firstly, the habeas corpus having been brought to an end, the court ought not to have considered any further applications in that action arising out of the detention of the applicant. The court ought to have required the applicant to institute new proceedings if he wanted to seek that relief. An application for a writ of habeas corpus is a discrete action and should always remain a discrete action.
The Court of Appeal has left unresolved a lot of the issues that have agitated the country for quite a long time. And I do hope that the Privy Council will deal with these substantial issues.
While it is permissible for another person to swear the affidavit on behalf of the applicant, that affidavit must state that the person restrained is unable to make the affidavit himself, and for what reason. Sir Michael said it was surprising that the judge acted on her affidavit, given its glaring defects and given the fact that it failed to state what the rules required. He noted that Clothilde Jean Charles categorically stated in her affidavit that her brother was still in custody when this was not the case. Sir Michael said, these defects illustrate why it was important and why the rules require that an affidavit be made by the applicant himself. He said that the judge would not have granted leave for the habeas corpus application had it been brought to his attention that Ronnie Jean Charles was not in the state's custody. So Michael added, if the evidence at the time of the application shows that the person is not being detained, then there is no basis for the relief of habeas corpus. Smith said at the end of the day, he just wants people to see the bigger picture.
And so it is regrettable that the government is treating human beings so callously, so inhumanely, and so brutally. So I urge the Prime Minister, I urge Minister Simonet, and I urge the Immigration Department to back off and be more humane, considerate, and lawful in their treatment of people of Haitian ethnic origin in the Bahamas.
Well, amid violent protests in Haiti over alleged corruption, Minister of Foreign Affairs Darren Henfield says the Bahamas government is fully prepared to pull Bahamian workers out of Haiti if necessary. Henfield says government has received a note informing them of the violence that has erupted just over 24 hours ago. Jasmine Brown reports.
It's just the latest round of unrest to hit Haiti after a peaceful protest turned deadly this week, leaving at least 2 people dead and more than 24 people seriously injured. Foreign Affairs Minister Darren Henfield says the latest violence has not gone unnoticed by Bahamian authorities, who he says are closely monitoring the developments and taking precautions to ensure the safety of personnel there.
We received a note from the Haitian government indicating that there was likely going to be this protest of which you speak. We make judgment calls based on what we're hearing from our officers on the ground and our ambassadors and consul generals in these various missions. And we will not hesitate to remove them, even if they give us the slightest hint that they feel threatened or unsafe.
Protests erupted over the alleged misuse of $3.8 billion of government funds. Video of the violence made the rounds on social media on Wednesday, showing members of Haitian law enforcement firing high-powered weapons as bystanders cowered on the sides of the street. Police spokesman Michel Agné Louis June told AP News today that 11 people were injured by bullets and 11 officers by flying rocks. The Miami Herald reported that in Port-au-Prince, protesters damaged several buildings and vehicles, threw rocks at the Swiss embassy, blew up a car, and attempted to burn down a gas station. At least 11 police vehicles were either damaged or set ablaze. Henfield says following reports of protests, local officials began reaching out to Bahamians in Haiti who were not immediately available.
We've not yet heard anything untoward from our embassy in Haiti, and so we think our people are safe, but we're now reaching out and trying to find a report on the ground in Port-au-Prince as to what's actually going on in that country at the moment. We know what you know now from the wires.
Still, Henfield says the protests are a definite concern. There have been several bouts of violence in Haiti in recent months. However, Henfield says officials are still awaiting more information to determine the necessary steps moving forward.
Haiti is a very important member of CARICOM. It is a very important country for us to maintain a presence in for obvious reasons. And yes, there is some element of danger for our people posted anywhere in the world, I suppose, in this era of terrorism and other concerns that we have. But
now, Henfield says despite the obvious issues in Haiti, the ties between the Haitian and Bahamian governments remain strong, and he hopes to keep it that way. Reporting for our News, I'm Jasmine Brown.
All right, thanks, Jasmine. Still to come on our news, what government is doing to deter Dominican poachers. Plus, the family of E.P. Roberts presents the primary school with the late educator's bust. Stay tuned.